Hey, friends, YouTubers, truckers. I haven't done a video in a while. I've been working hard. Um, I think that's just the nature of trucking, man. My hat's off to all truckers out there. Um, you're the what makes this world go around, and my hat's off. OTR drivers, dedicated, regional, all you guys, man. I've gained a lot of respect uh, for what it is to be a trucker. But anyway, this video is about OTR versus dedicated, and I'm a dedicated driver in New Mexico. Um, I work out of I live in Albuquerque, and I work out of DC Walmart, which is DC is basically a big distribution center, and that's what DC is, distribution center. And the trucks, the amount of trucks and loads coming in and out of this place are just nuts. Which is one of the really nice things about dedicated is the work's very consistent. Um, and there's a lot of pluses. There's a video I watched recently of this guy, trucker. He's been doing it for a long time. Makes sense, and he talks about dedicated versus or dedicated, his experience with dedicated, and his experience with OTR. He's now an owner operator, um, and he's doing really well. You can do really well in this business. For all you beginning truckers, I know it's tough. You're not making a lot of money, um, especially OTR in the beginning, coming out of school. I hear stories all the time. No matter what large carrier that you're working with, starting out, you're seeing those $400, $600 checks a week, barely enough to even pay your bills. And I think that probably a lot of guys give up at that point. Um, I started off OTR, and my OTR experience, very limited. I was out on the road for 3 months, but that was 3 months away from my family, and it was really tough. And I was seeing those $400, $600 paychecks, barely making bills, having to borrow money, and that prompted me to look into jumping ship, which I see a lot of truckers do. Jumping ship is that's what they all say when they change companies. Jump ship from one company to another company. And my experience with OTR was really rough, and it was a lot of especially as a beginner, because of, I think that the more experienced drivers are getting the better loads. And depending on your driver manager, if you've got a good driver manager, depending on location, um, there's variables that are really gonna determine whether you're gonna make good money OTR in the beginning. Back to Make Sense. I was gonna say something about Make Sense. He he really highly recommends dedicated in the beginning. And the best, the cool thing about dedicated is you get a lot of experience backing, um, and you're going to be working very consistently, whether it be paid by the hour, or whether you're getting paid by the mile. Um, but I dock my truck 2 to 3 times a day. Back the trailer, bring the trailer back to the terminal, park that trailer in between two other trailers in a very tight space. So I'm getting a lot of experience, um, you know, backing, which, I didn't get out on the road. OTR, it was like a couple of times a week you're backing into a dock, and it just seems like it's really hard to get, any decent amount of backing experience, unless you practice at a truck stop, which you can do, but usually you're too tired, you're just happy to just get parked and, or even, you're not always parking at a truck stop, you're parking out on the road and rest stops. And at a rest stop, you're definitely not going to be backing the trailer. And even at truck stops, you're looking for the easiest place to park, and it's not always backing into a spot. You can pull into a spot. Um, the truck stop may be too full, and you're parking out on the street. So still, you may not get a lot of experience backing. Um, and back to waiting on loads. I can remember one of the weeks I was, one of the weeks where I sat for 34 hours, twice in one week. Can you imagine what that does to your paycheck? I mean, waiting on loads, waiting at shippers and waiting at receivers, and it was really tough. Hats off to OTO drivers that make it through in the beginning and get to that point where they're making decent money. Because OTR drivers do get paid more than dedicated, as far as CPM, and CPM is cents per mile. If you don't know, and but I really enjoy my job. And it's gotten easier. As I put on the miles, it seems like the miles get shorter. My average run is about 400 miles. Some of my runs are 1,400 miles. I'm traveling New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, and I see all kinds of weather. Right now is winter time. I've seen snowpack. I've seen fog, rain. And I do drive in the mountains. And so I've gotten some of that experience that I think some OTR drivers will experience driving the Northwest. Mountain terrains, winter storms, stuff like that. But it's still not as bad as what I've seen this year in the Midwest. My heart goes out to all those truckers that have had to sit out these storms. I can only imagine what that does to a paycheck. Not being able to um, move the loads, and and just the danger of it. I drive I-40 to Amarillo and Texas, and I see some bad wrecks along that road. Some really bad ones. Trucks turned over, trucks burned to the ground. It's probably one of the worst corridors um, in the Southwest. It may compare to any bad corridor. From what I understand, it's one of the worst. And I think what makes it bad is it gets cold out there. The roads get icy, and it can really go from good to bad really quickly. And so traveling that road has definitely had its moments. I've been in a couple of whiteouts going through there. Lucky for me, I haven't hit any really hard icy roads. Thank God. But like this last storm, um, I was going to Farmington, and I hit fog, I hit snowpack, and it's all about driving, driving the conditions. If you go too fast, and I see trucks going too fast on snowpack, and it's just not, it's not worth it. Slow down. Uh, take your time. It's best to get there alive. Where you're going, or have to shut down, and and just sit it out. I think, thank goodness, the company I work for, and as a dedicated driver, I'm not forced to get these loads delivered. And I think it may be just the fact that I'm delivering to just WalMarts around the state, and all over, and Walmart can Walmart can wait, man. I mean, they sometimes loads don't get there that day, and it's okay. So I thank goodness that I'm in that position. Um, I'm pretty excited. I was, it's been really tough because the money's okay, but it's not great. Which is had me considering jumping ship, maybe going to the oil fields. But the oil fields are very dangerous. It's hard to get out there. Um, a lot of them want at least 1 year experience, and some oil field experience. But of course, you're not gonna if you've never been out there, you're not gonna have the experience. So it's kind of tough to get out into oil fields. Um, at least here in New Mexico, because it's all going on down the Permian Basin, down in Carlsbad, southern New Mexico, and it's there's definitely jobs down there, and with experience and time, you're going to make really good money down there. But I'm realizing that sticking it out could also just sticking it out where I'm at, could also come to be some decent money. Um, I'm working here pretty soon. I'm looking to become a mentor. And I was a tutor. I was a teacher. I really think that I can offer something to some of the new drivers coming in. Teaching them the routes. I've been doing this long enough now, 6 months, that I can show them I can show them the routes. I can show them how to use the Qualcomm, and everything that needs to be done, and and offer them some of the things that I've learned, um, just driving dedicated, and driving all the terrains that I drive. I drive, little 2-lane roads, mountain roads, and I've done done some really bad weather, done fog, I've done rain, and I think for me it comes natural. I'm older. I'm not young. I've done a lot of driving. I've done some professional driving before, with school buses and taxi cabs, and just a lot of driving experience, which is going to be helpful. Even if you've never driven a semi truck before, if you've got the mindset to be cautious, and watch what other people are doing. Don't take chances. Use common sense, and I think this job requires common sense, and I see a lot of truckers out there that, just in my opinion, don't have common sense. They're not respectful. They're tailgating. They're going way too fast, and that's that's just not that's not making us look good out there. And and you hear the ads now on the radio. Uh, Lawyer ads. Fighting truckers. And kind of making truckers look bad with these ads. If you've been hurt in a truck by a truck, call us. And it's kind of inundating. So we really need to be mindful out there. We need to be respectful to the vehicles on the road. Um, And just because you're driving some big truck um, doesn't mean you're the king of the road, and you have the right to push people around, you know, push other trucks around, push four wheelers around, and I see that happening out there, and I just it's, it's not cool, man. You know, I always back off for the for the trucks, and some of the slowest trucks out there. I think are, believe it or not, Prime, man. Prime. I pass more Prime trucks than I think I do any other trucks, and I'm governed at 65. So to be passing trucks, when I pass a truck, it's like, wow, what's this guy's problem? And you're like, why is he going so slow? Sometimes I wish I could go faster. And I think I could handle going faster, but even then, um, you wouldn't be doing it all the time. There's always somebody that wants to go faster, and I just let them go. I'm always backing off, even for trucks that want to pass you. You're doing 65 and they're doing 66, 67, and then they get in front of you, and they slow back down to 65, and you're like, you know, why'd you do that? I mean, there was no point. There was just really no point in that. But they feel like they gotta be in front, and it forces me to slow down because our trucks are there's a distance. Um, you know, the radar picks it up, the distance, and if you're following too close, it'll affect your safety points. Um, and I've worked really hard to uh, keep my safety points down, and um, not get any drive cams where the camera picks up an incident, whether it be speeding, whether it be driving too close, whether it be lane departure. The camera's going to pick these things up, and it's going to hit your safety points. And I work for Swift, and Swift has what they call a ranking bonus, and that ranking bonus is really pretty good. Depending on your rank, will depend on the amount of uh, monies the CPM, cents per mile, that they pay out at the end of each quarter. Um, which can really add up. Um, I'm 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 a gold. I rank gold, which I believe they got what they call platinum, gold, silver. Um, and actually, I think the top is diamond. So it goes diamond, platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And those are the different ranking levels. And like for where I'm at a gold, um, the cents per mile, I believe, is that I get at the end of the quarter is like 4 cents per mile. Um, and when you're driving, 25,000 or 2,500 miles per week, 8,000, maybe 10,000 miles a month. Do the math, so I can add up. And I see drivers, getting $1,000, $2,000 bonuses at the end of the quarter. So that really helps a lot, in making that money, and especially, but it may be different with OTR versus dedicated, as far as when you're eligible. Um, as a dedicated driver, you're not eligible for rank pay until 6 months, and so you're not going to see anything for that first 6 months, and then it starts to come in. So um, I think we get a raise at 6 months, 1 year, and then every year after that. And that definitely could be different with OTR. Like I said, dedicated doesn't pay as much as OTR. And I don't really understand that other than the fact that OTR they're going to sit more. But I think dedicated drivers work just as hard, if not harder, because we're really running out our 14-hour clocks, whereas OTR very seldom going to run out your OTR clock because you're mostly driving, and when you're sitting, you're off. You're sitting truck stop or you're sitting um, your OTR. And if you are sitting at a shipper and you're on duty, um, that you can only go on duty for so long, and you don't want to run out your clock, so you go off duty. But when you're making 3 stops like I do, I'll make 3 stops. And each stop it takes minimum 30 minutes, to 45 minutes to unload. So before you know it, you've used up the that um, extra time because you get 14 hours uh, total for each shift and 11 hours drive time. And sometimes I'll only use 8 hours of my drive time, but I've used 4 hours or 3 hours of of my on duty time, and so 8 hours of driving, or 11 hours of driving, and then a couple hours, 2 3 hours of on duty time, and your clock is done, and you've got to shut down. So it I'll do 70 hours. I'll do 70 hours in a 7 8 day period. So as a dedicated driver, I'm putting in the time. If I'm not driving, I'm on duty. I'm unloading. Um, or I'm at the shipper. And usually get out of the shipper pretty quick. The trailers are preloaded. So I come in for a shift, and I get my paperwork, and I get in the truck. I sign on, do my pre-trip, get the trailer hooked up, and if I don't have to fuel the trailer because I run reefer, if I don't have to fuel the trailer or fuel the truck, I can get out of the yard, um, within 30 minutes of signing in with a 20-minute pre-trip, and I can, usually get out of the road within a half hour. But that, it's a half hour, so that uses up your clock, and and then your stop time um, at the receiver. And for me, that's Walmart. I'm only doing Walmart, and Walmart docks they all vary. Some of them are easy, some of them are hard, some of them are really tight. So it all depends. Um, I would say I've gotten they know if you're good at backing and getting in the dock quick, just by how you're putting in your time there. Um, because you gotta tell the Qualcomm you've arrived, and you got to tell it when you depart. And I get in and out of my stops pretty quickly. So I think that reflects, and because of that, um, it seems like I've gotten better routes, and they've gotten better at keeping me going, um, through each work week, and keeping me moving. And I really don't have that much downtime. There's little gaps here and there where I'll come home for my 10 hour, and sometimes I'm not back on, for well 15 hours, 20 hours, and I think 20 hours has probably been the most, before they're calling me and saying, hey, we got to load, but for the most part, I'm at home long enough to rest and play with my son for a little while, and get my sleep. And sleep, is most important for these, for these young guys, single that, living double lives, man. Uh, you're taking a big risk, and it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up to you if you're not getting your rest, and make sure that that you're rested, before going into work. A lot of my shifts are at night, so um, I make sure I get a little nap. And sometimes I've got to shut down, for an hour and take a little cat nap, or power nap. Driving at night. I don't take any chances. I had one incident when I was OTR where I was just pushing it really hard, and I nodded, scared the freaking crap out of me, and I was like, I'll never do that again. Um, if I feel like I'm getting too tired to drive, I'll stop and pull over, and it's amazing what just an hour of just laying down, closing your eyes, and taking a little power nap. Um, that can really really make the difference, man. That can get you another couple hundred miles, and so for all your drivers, you know, don't push it, man. Do what you got to do, and no falling asleep out there. And I think a lot of the accidents that happen out there are drivers falling asleep, and distracted drivers. Keep your eyes on the road. Um, and there's been some accidents lately that I'm like, that just shouldn't have happened. Um, when you get into a busy area, and uh, you know, you're too distracted to be really, aware of what's going on, and you plow into a bunch of cars. I just find that unacceptable. Um, I just see no reason for that. If you're coming into a city, a town, um, that's the time to really be conscious, aware, um, and pay attention to what's going on in front of you. And I'm not saying you need to be aware all the time, but when you're out on the road and there's nothing in front of you, that's it's not as big a deal. That's for sure. But a lot of these accidents that are killing people, I'm seeing these accidents happen in congested areas, um, coming into city limits, and stuff like that. And so that's unacceptable, man. I mean, plowing into a bunch of people is just, I can't even understand it. I can't even grasp it. Um, so if there's, if you have any questions about OTR versus dedicated, I'm happy to answer some of those questions. And by the way, thanks for, watching the videos that I have posted. And I've gotten a couple, a few subscribers. That's really cool. And um, you know, I think doing these videos. I think it's about just getting a feel, and a practice for it, and maybe just being able to put some more information out there, or just my experience, being able to share my experience, um, with what's going on with me getting into the business, um, and maybe it'll inspire you, um, uh, to get in the business, or maybe stay with it, or make a good decision about where you're going to go, what company. I think that these mega carriers that have schools, I don't really hear one good thing about any of them. Um, some of them are better than others. Some of them are more thorough, uh, but I I think all of them pretty much do the same thing when it comes to starting out as a driver. You're just not going to get the money's going to be really tough in the beginning, and you know, especially for OTR drivers, even though you're getting more cents per mile than a dedicated, it's just not going to be real consistent unless you're lucky. I hear guys out there that right out of the gate, um, they're really lucky, and I think it has a lot to do with where you live, and what terminal you're working out of, whether it's really busy, a busy area, and I think that can have a lot to do with it. That and your driver manager, a good driver manager is gonna, I think, keep you working. So I'm not saying that every beginner out there is going to experience a tough time, because I do hear drivers that start out right out of the gate, and they've been able to be pretty consistent working in the OTR. Um, and there might be drivers out there that work in dedicated that maybe it's not consistent. But for me, it is consistent. Um, I know that if you stick with it and dedicated, the money is going to go up, and between bonuses and maybe become a mentor and stuff like that, you can actually make some pretty decent money. Um, my mentor, he's been doing this 3 years, and between his bonuses and his mentoring, and what he's making per mile, and the fact that he is getting better runs as a mentor. He made over 80,000 this year, and that was encouraging, to me, because right now I'm making half of that, if that, probably about half of that is probably what I'll do, and so the money's there, and dedicated. There's no question about it. Now there's of course there's dedicated that pay by the hour, and here in Albuquerque, the starting pay for dedicated drivers getting paid by the hour, man, it's not that good. From what I'm seeing, they want to start you at like $19 an hour. Uh, yeah, you're gonna maybe only work 40 hours a week, and maybe a little bit of overtime, 10 hours, so you might work 50 hours a week. Um, and so you are going to be home a little bit more, and more consistently, and maybe have a set schedule and things like that. That's the thing about running dedicated for Walmart. I don't. My schedule can really jump from I'm driving days to driving nights. It really jumps around. So I'm not just driving I'm not on a consistent schedule, which can be a little tough. That's why it's very important to get your rest, um, and make sure that you're ready to go. Because you could sit out a day, you can come home, and after driving days, and then all of a sudden, uh, you sit a little extra time, and all of a sudden you're driving nights. So you're jumping, from driving night to driving day to driving day to driving nights. That can be a little tough, if you're not getting the proper rest. So get your rest, and keep the sunny side, the shiny side up, and the rubber down, as the old timers like to say. And I think that's really important. Be safe, and make the money, man. Make the money. I hope this video has been helpful. Like I said, any questions you might have, feel free to drop them in the comments. I would love some more subscribers, and we'll see you guys on the next video. I'm gonna put up a picture of a love stop in Tucumcari. Beautiful sunset. New Mexico is beautiful. I love driving days. I love seeing the beautiful landscapes here. So that's just awesome. I see so much beautiful land up here or down here. Compared to like the Midwest, where it's just so redundant. I enjoyed certain states when I was driving OTR, and when I did OTR, I went coast to coast a handful of times, and I'd have to say that my favorite state, is Northwest and Northeast. Of course, it just gets beautiful. Upstate New York and Northern California, Washington, Oregon. Those are beautiful states. I hate going through Texas. Texas has got more bugs than probably any state. And you're just always having to clean those windows. Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida. Those are also pretty states. No mountains, which I like the mountains. I hear some drivers are like, nah, I hate driving mountains. But man, I love the mountains, and maybe it's just spending most of my life here in New Mexico, and being in the mountains. So I love the mountains. So anyway, I better get this video done. I've already been running 37 minutes. Who's going to want to watch a 37-minute video? So again, ask, if you have any questions, please ask them. And I don't know if if I kind of covered, everything dedicated versus OTR. So I kind of jumped around a lot, and I really didn't talk about dedicated, talk about OTR, but I definitely hit on the different, some of the different things, OTR versus dedicated, and I think the big money in this business is OTR, but it's once you get your experience, and definitely as an owner operator, you're going to hear a lot of these more experienced guys, tell you don't lease a truck. I don't have any experience leasing a truck. I've talked to a few people that lease, and I think it's really tough for them. Leasing, you're really, you've got to be committed to making that payment. So you really can't afford any downtime. You may make a little bit more money, but a lot of that money is going toward your lease. So I'm not going to recommend a lease. I think it's getting better. Some of these companies, after being sued, are being forced to offer better lease programs. So if you're really considering a lease, do your research, look around YouTube. There's certain things that you really want to look for, and in a lease purchase, whether there's a balloon payment, which can really screw you up, and just different things that that can really make the difference as a lease operator. But again, the money's in owning as an owner operator, and there again, you got to be really smart about it, and have some experience before you get into owning your own truck. I think if you try and jump into it right away, it could really it may be really tough. And but as far as company driving, I see guys been company drivers for 30 years, and man, they're making, they are making those six figures, and and making really good money. I know that you know Walmart drivers make really good money. I haven't really talked to a Walmart driver to know just how hard they work for that. But I know that they make good money, and um, niche markets. Company drivers make really good money. But remember, if you're starting out with a mega carrier, you're just gonna have to pay your dues, and you're not gonna make a lot of money in the beginning. But as you work your way up and get your experience, you can make your money staying with that company, or jump ship and maybe get a better opportunity with another company to raise that income. So here again, I start rambling again. I'm gonna call it quits now, and you guys take care, be safe, um, and again, keep the rubber side down, the shiny side up, and if you get a chance, look at some other videos. I do some art here and there. I paint trucks. Um, I like to do paintings of trucks. I'd be happy to do a painting of your truck. Um, it's not super expensive, but you know how nice it would be to have a painting of your truck on your wall. Uh, it's I think it's pretty cool. And it helps me make a little extra money, which money's good. So you guys take care, and until the next video.